Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to Transformation Tuesday. All right. And we have Miss Kara Etienne. She's not a stranger to the broadcast, she's not a stranger to the community, she's not a stranger to anybody. Okay. This woman works, she works hard, and she's out here working again. And the mission and the focus this time is on our opioid summit. Now, I know you've heard the word opioid. You hear about it all the time. People are talking about it left and right. And we're going to give you some education on that today. And we're going to stress why you need to know about it and what happens when you encounter people that are using and things like that. All right. So I'm going to have Miss Kara come on so she can really give you the rundown on what's happening. Miss Kara, come on up in here. Yay!
I'm here.
It's always fun when you're on Transformation.
Yes, thank you for having me again.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so I got my notes over here. I'm trying to make sure because I don't want to miss anything. We got a lot
Gotcha.
here. We got time. So the opioid summit, the opioid use disorder prevention initiatives, and all of that is you. All of that is you. Also, you're a licensed medical social worker.
Master
A lot.
social worker.
That is
Yes,
a lot. Yes, ma'am. Tell us what's happening with you as the opioid use disorder prevention manager, and then how your social work and things ties into that, which will lead us to the opioid summit.
Okay, so I'm glad you asked that.
Mhm.
So yes, I am the opioid use disorder prevention manager here in the prevention and wellness department, where Dr. Avius Carroll is the director. If you
Mhm.
can't tell by that little summary, I love my job.
Yes.
So back when I was in college, we used to sit, and as we were going through, primarily in grad school, when we started learning about really diving into the different careers that you could take in social work, I used to always say that I wanted to work at the community level.
Mhm.
And that was kind of what I wanted to do. I didn't really want to do direct practice. Well, what we say we want and what we end up doing and all those things are different, end up sometimes go differently. So when I first got out of school, that was what I did. I worked direct practice in a variety of different settings.
What's
I
direct
started
practice?
out inpatient, so
Oh,
working one-on-one with clients, working
okay,
directly
okay.
with
And that's
clients.
normally what I think of when I hear social work.
Yes, so working one-on-one.
Mhm.
So I worked inpatient, I worked outpatient. I was a dialysis social worker for a while. I worked at the vets home as a regular floor social worker. Then I ended up being the director of social services there. Um, I even did some outpatient work, like in the homes in the community.
Mhm.
And so I tell people that all of that prepared me for what I am doing now,
Mhm.
which is managing the opioid response grant that the state of Louisiana receives from the federal government in order to battle or combat the opioid epidemic. So, how those two work together, I like to think that my degree, my background in social work, and those experiences, every job, every position that I've ever had, every instance where I've worked with people directly, I
Mhm.
had instances where there was someone that struggled with substance use disorder.
Okay.
And even not just someone suffering like my clients, I even worked with individuals
I was gonna
that
say,
had
at the
issues.
veterans home. At the
Wait, what
veterans
you say?
still,
Huh?
like at the veterans home. That's
No,
all I
no,
was
no,
thinking
no,
at
no.
first when
Just
you were like,
just different places. Like I said, I
yeah,
worked in
yeah,
a
that makes
variety of different places.
right. But I was like, wait a minute. I'm thinking once again, probably like how most people think, like you're talking about that individual that's like using and whatnot, but it's sometimes
Right,
the people
right.
around.
Right.
Okay.
It was in different settings and it was
Mm-hmm.
more prevalent than what we think it is.
Uh-huh.
But one of the things that being in this position opened my eyes to was that while I was aware of it, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't fully understand the depth of it, how large the problem was,
Mm-hmm.
and the importance of taking the approach that we're taking now. And that there was even prior to me starting, that there had even been funds that had been allocated to
Mm-hmm.
combat that particular problem, that particular epidemic. And
Mhm.
so working with now here, I'm able to tie all of those things in. I'm able to use the skills that I was taught
Mhm.
in my master's program at Grambling State University.
Oh, right now for the home team,
Better
for the
execute,
HBCU.
yes, how to better execute the deliverables,
Mhm.
those things that we're required to do in receiving the federal funding. Now, of
Mhm.
course, I still have to make sure it stays within the guidelines
Right.
of what the federal government, what the state government, and even what our executive director wants. But my background in social work helps me to be able to figure out ways to be creative
Mhm.
in meeting the need. And even when I think about, like I say, my direct practice and time working there, it helps me to also understand how the importance of addressing the issue, because there's probably people that are like me prior to me starting this, that you're working with and around people. And when I say every day, I'm not meaning like it was something that was consistent. But
Mhm.
if you have a client, however often you see that client, if that's something that they're struggling with, then that's something that is a part of that treatment plan that you're working with them on, that could be impacting how far along they're able to move
Mhm.
towards the goals and objectives that you have for them in the treatment setting that you're working with them in.
The other thing that came to mind as you're speaking, when you were saying about being in contact with it like day to day or whenever you see your client, hindsight is 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And like me, I work with industry professionals like you and things like that. So I hear you all talk about it and I know it exists, but has it directly impacted me and my family? I'm going to say no, but I don't know what it looks like. It's different for everybody in every situation,
Yes,
you know?
it is. It completely is. I worked with someone. I did a training a couple of weeks ago um, with the fire department here
Mhm.
in Monroe.
Mhm.
And so one of the firemen or firefighters, let me correct that because they got me together with that one.
It's some ladies
Came
out
up to me and was just speaking with
there.
me one on one, and he
Mhm.
said, you never think about it. He said, but one time he and his wife had a party, and that there had been one of them had a procedure where they had been given prescribed opioids, and so they just had it in the medicine cabinet in their bathroom. They wasn't taking it. He was like, however, after this particular party, when they're going into the medicine cabinet for something else, they notice that the bottle is gone. And so a lot of times we don't think about it. We think that it's not around us or near us. And he said, had it have not been for however long that pill bottle was sitting there, that it left a gaping hole to
Mhm.
him with it not being there after they had taken it. He was
Mhm.
like, but it's not something that most people would typically pay attention to or
Mhm.
even think about, or realize. He said, and then
Or
when
they
they
go to
went to
look for it.
thinking, right, and then when they went to thinking of who all was there, they couldn't even imagine who would have possibly taken it, because it was, close family and friends that were there.
Mhm.
So it is more prevalent than we think, and a lot of times we think that it is not within our social system or our
Mhm.
that
You're
we operate in, but it's there.
absolutely, absolutely. So, like, I mean, you pretty much said we just talked about like why Northeast Delta is so focused on opioids and why we put such an emphasis on it, because it is like so widespread and it reaches
Mhm.
everyone on all levels. And I know um it's getting a lot of it's getting it's great. And this isn't me. This is the community and whatnot. I hear
Mhm.
things. It's great that there is such an emphasis on it.
Okay.
But it's like, well, how come none of these measures were taken when it was crack? Or like when it was crack, it was this, and now it's this. Is it because it looks different? But like all that goes to say is that like everyone is being affected by this. And that's one
Yes.
reason why, and correct me if I'm wrong, that NEDHSA is putting such a big emphasis on this.
And not just that, but this is one thing that we have to think about, and I don't want to minimize at all.
Hmm.
I'm sure all of us can probably think about, especially me. I'm from born and raised right here in Northeast Louisiana, and so I'm from a very small town. Tallulah, what's up, my people? And so I can think about, and I'm familiar with, and I know various people who suffered from or was impacted by the crack epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
The difference in the crack epidemic and the opioid epidemic is that, and again, not saying that it didn't destroy homes, it didn't
Right.
destroy individuals, and it didn't destroy families. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Is the difference, though, the number one difference is that it didn't kill people at the rate in which
Mm.
the opioid epidemic, and especially now that fentanyl has entered into the scene and is
Yeah.
like I say, the game changer. It is the Russian roulette of drugs.
Mm-hmm.
That the number of people that are dying, there are more than 200 people dying in America a day from an opioid related overdose. I tell people, depending on where I'm at, I always try to make sure I keep up with things and I'm able to speak to the audience level that I have. And so, especially when I go to the different colleges and I'm talking to the college students, I'm able to bring up different entertainers. And I brought up, there was a rapper that was very famous or popular during my time in college that overdosed and died off of fentanyl. Hours before she overdosed and died, she was about to hit the stage. Her brother used and went into an overdose, and they were at the facility, so they had health care. They were able to get him to the emergency room in time, and he survived. However, knowing that her brother overdosed didn't stop her from using her product that they had purchased at that same time, and she died from it because she was at home by the time everything took place, and it ended up killing her. And so one of the another rapper, I'm not going to say names,
I'm sure
but
trying to
he
figure it
and
out.
he made a very controversial statement.
Mm-hmm.
But I understood what he was saying in that statement when he was like, leave the fentanyl alone. And he was telling people to use another drug, and we don't want to tell people to use another
I know what you're
substance.
talking about. Yeah.
But the point that he was making was that,
It's dead.
the number of people that we are hearing that are dying from either one time or first time use of fentanyl, and they're not even knowing that that's what it is, or, or what's in it, is producing the deaths. However, other substances didn't have that mortality rate. But
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing a change in that now also, because they're now starting to lace fentanyl into just about every substance that's out there. And so
Mm-hmm.
you have people that have probably been using crack cocaine for several years, or meth, or other drugs, that are now overdosing and dying because their supplier is either knowingly putting it in or unknowingly. Maybe they don't even know or realize what they're using and what they're lacing it with. They're just trying to produce the best high to get you to keep coming back to them and purchasing from them.
Right.
So with that, it's important that we constantly talk about and we bring light to this subject because of the amount of people that are dying each and every day. And not even just the ones that are dying, the numbers that there's over 1,000 people a day that end up in the emergency room for opioid related issues. And so
Mm-hmm.
you think about what that puts on our healthcare, our EMS, our first responders, responding to calls, even in our emergency departments, how that takes away from, the time and the care for people that are, and don't get me wrong, when they're experiencing overdose, they are legitimately sick. They legitimately need time, care, and attention in
Mm-hmm.
order to be able to live. But you think about how many of those instances, take the place of people who have, other chronic or acute illnesses that they have no control over, also from our healthcare system, and the amount of dollars that goes into it. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's why we're doing the summit. We want to put out, we want to provide not just education. We can talk about it. You and I can get on here every week and talk about something related to the opioid topic.
Right.
But how effective are we if we're not providing a service or something to individuals, whether it's direct population, people who are currently using, people who are our treatment providers, who are working with those individuals.
Mm-hmm.
It's more um, beneficial to provide them with tangible services, knowledge, skills, and education that they can use to take back and incorporate into their treatment to bring a wider um, understanding to the topic, and then kind of create a network of what we're going to do and how we can work together to address the problem.
Right. Um, right. Our press release on the summit says that the opioid summit is an opportunity for behavioral health professionals, primary health care workers, law enforcement, federal, state, local officials, clergy, and advocates to come together and collaborate on how to meet this complex societal issue with action. So this isn't just for the medical people. Of course, they will be there. Of course,
Yes,
absolutely. But like, this isn't limiting everyone else that's a non-medical professional.
correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. We want everyone, we need to understand, and our goal is to make sure that regardless of where you are, what your role is within our communities, we
Mm-hmm.
all have a role, a position to play. We all have to come together and work together. We must come together and work together in order to combat this epidemic. You think about most times individuals when they leave treatment,
Mm-hmm.
typically a lot of them, church is the first place that they go to, or one of the first places they go to. They've
Mm-hmm.
gone home with their families, or they're being reunited back into their communities, and
Mm-hmm.
so they're going back to their churches, and they're letting their churches know. I've seen it myself numerous times. They're letting their churches know, like, hey, I need you, I want you to work with me on the accountability part and help me to be able to maintain my sobriety. Or those may not be the words that they use, but that's essentially what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if a church doesn't fully understand and know what all resources are available out there for them, they could potentially fall through the gap again. And
Right.
so that's why we say faith based. That's why we say law enforcement. It takes everyone working together
Right.
in order to be able to help those individuals and to combat this the problem that we're faced with.
Right. And it's not that these, for like using the example you had, that the faith-based leaders and whatnot don't want to, it's just,
Right.
people only know as much as they know. So when they get to a certain
Exactly.
point and you're like, well, I've helped this person as much as I can, who can I turn to?
Right.
You have that community
Mm-hmm.
that can come in a space where you aren't able to deliver any more, resources. At that point, you were supporting.
Yes. And if
Mhm.
they say, and you say, hey, you even know the questions to ask?
Right.
You want us to help you, and we're here. We're going to walk you through it. We're going to be
Mhm.
praying with you. We're going to help provide any other tangible need that it is that the church can provide. A lot of times they provide job assistance and
Mhm.
clothing and food and shelter and all those things. But then I also need to know and understand, have you connected with a treatment provider? Have you
Right.
followed up on your discharge planning that they have provided to you? If when you know those keywords and you know those questions to ask, it helps build that network. It helps build
Right.
that
Right.
foundation for them. And it lets them know, like, because sometimes they may not have, and a lot of times they may not have, not because they don't want to, they may not know how to, they may not have transportation. And so
Right.
that's something that the church could help to provide for them. And
Right.
so that's what we're hoping to be able to create.
Mhm.
And then just knowing what other agencies and services that are out there that are open and available. There is a large variety of services network, even some that I wasn't familiar with as I'm going through planning the summit, that I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't know this existed. And so, or this particular place existed. And so now I can add them to our network and our list of who we can
Mhm.
continue to work with and partner with.
Mhm.
And it just makes what the work that we're doing, it makes it much more stronger, and able to make sure we have that strong foundation and network. Dr. Sizer always says, you don't want to operate as a governmental silo. So you can't just think, well, because we're the government or we're the state agency, we know it all, we've got it all, and we can do it all. You've got to work across various systems in order to meet the need, to truly meet the need of the
Right.
individual.
And see, that's one reason that I really, really love just listening to you talk and just seeing you work, because you are dedicated to your community and your work. Because I don't even know if you remember saying this, but you were just like, yeah, we have this and we have this and we have this going on. But look, I need to go do this Narcan training. I need to go deliver this to Tara, because see, I have to go do this. Like, I love that about you. But with that being said, so I know that this summit is not going to be, it will not be just people talking. I know
No.
with being how you are, like, okay, I got work to do.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. I gotta go. I have to do a Narcan training over here. I know there's going to be a lot of value at the summit. Like, what all is going to be there? We're going to have like the breakout sessions and panel discussions, and also the keynote speaker. Tell me about the keynote speaker as well.
Ooh, okay. So the keynote speaker,
Yes.
um, her name is Diana Kelly. She's a licensed clinical social worker,
Okay.
and she works for the Hazelden Betty Ford Foundation,
Okay.
which is one of the top addiction treatment providers in our country.
Mm-hmm.
I met her in April at the national summit that we go to, and she and I just started talking. And as we were just talking about being social workers, the work that we were doing. And then, of course, we were like, well, are you enjoying the conference? Are you enjoying being here in Atlanta? Different things like that. And so I started saying, well, I plan a summit nowhere near this size, but to me, it is equally as important because it provides the resources to those within our area that can't attend the national summit like we do.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I told her I hadn't found a keynote speaker yet. And so she was like, oh, that's something she would be willing to do. So we began communicating afterwards. She is a person with the lived experience. She is
Okay.
also a veteran. She is the master clinical trainer for them. So like she does a lot of the training that foundation does.
Mm-hmm.
And so she is going to be our keynote speaker that's going to be talking about trauma from multiple levels. One of the things, and I've had a sneak peek at her
I'm
presentation.
excited. I'm ready.
Yes, one of the things she's going to talk about, which I think is going to be important for a lot of individuals there, is the importance of understanding trauma and how multiple people can experience and be in the same situation,
Mm-hmm.
but it affects each person differently.
Mm-hmm.
So you and I can both be out here at the railroad track, and a train can go by as we were about to cross, and we immediately step back, and you could say, "Oh, girl, oh, thank God we made it. You know, we got across. We didn't get hit."
Mm-hmm.
And that could be it for you. Like, you're thankful and grateful that we made it across, but I walk away thinking that could have been it. I almost died.
Right.
My life is like, it could seriously impact me at a much greater level. So even though we experienced it at the same time, it was the same situation, people walk away from events with a different perspective and experience from it. And so she's going to talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the goal is that we want everyone to understand the importance of understanding, recognizing, and addressing trauma to help maintain and build resilience for recovery.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about your breakout sessions and panelists? Are we going to have that as
Okay.
well?
So no breakout sessions.
Okay,
Everyone's
no
going to get
breakout.
the same thing the entire day.
Okay.
We're going to have Dr. Sizer, our executive director. He's going to be, and the train is going by. I may have to stop talking for a second. How ironic that I just used that as an
Right.
example, and then there goes the train. I'm going to mute for 1 second.
Okay. Watching from Tallulah. Thank you. Tallulah always shows up when
My
Kara comes on.
Listen, I'm telling you,
They support.
Tallulah, and that was my bestie. Okay, I think we've done with the whistling. So Dr. Sizer is going to be talking about the why, understanding why the epidemic looks like it does,
Mm-hmm.
and why we're doing the work that we're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
why it is important to build that framework.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to have Miss Terry Baz.
Mm-hmm.
She is with the Drug Enforcement Agency. She's going to be giving us some statistics, but she'll also be one of our panelists.
Okay.
I already talked about Diana, our keynote. Our panel discussion is going to be really, 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 really good. Like, I'm excited about it. We have Dr. Cesar Gonzalez. You all have met him before. He's committed to the work that Northeast Delta does and answers our call each and every time. He's an addictionologist, medical director, MD, and also has understanding of a lived experience. We have Dr. Craig Comanche. He is a peer specialist with 13 years of sobriety. He owns his own business and works with individuals every day on maintaining their recovery and entering into treatment.
Mm-hmm.
We have Brian Rucker with Celebrate Recovery from the Whites Ferry Rose Church. He's the director there. He brings a different approach because a part of his bio says that for a large part of his life, he was a narcotics dealer. He sold
Okay.
drugs. And so now he's working with Celebrate Recovery. He's an addiction counselor. So just to understand how him finding Jesus, finding the Lord, has brought about a new revelation to him, and
Mm-hmm.
he's doing something on the total opposite and
Right.
helping to connect people. Then we also have, am I missing anybody? I think that's it. And Deron Talley is going to be our communications director, is going to moderate that panel
That's
discussion
gonna be a
for us.
good panel. That's
So it's going to, Billy Letford. I was forgetting someone. He is a licensed clinical social worker at our Monroe Clinic. Has worked for a long time before we merged into one. He was with the department when it was just Office of Addictive Disorders,
Mhm.
and then we merged. But the largest part of his career has been working with individuals at the state level with addiction. He has also studied various faith-based models and
Mhm.
religions and different things. So he's going to bring that clinical approach from our agency and
Mhm.
kind of what it is that we're doing and what he does day to day, to be talking about that. Dr. Carol is going to close it out with trauma-informed self-care. You heard her on our meeting this morning. She
Yes.
gave us just a little snippet of it.
Yes.
And that's going to be important because we do a lot of the work and we're doing the work, but we don't always stop and understand and take the time to address how doing the work makes us feel and
Mhm.
how we can pour back into ourselves to be able to continue doing the work at our best self. We're also going to have vendor areas. We have over 30 businesses or agencies across our area that's going to be there providing information. So you should walk away with a wonderful resource guide. You should be able to build your resource guide
Mhm.
with what it is, services that are available. We are going to also have our art that we procured.
Yes.
You have worked and helped with that. Thank you so much, Aaron. So
Yes.
they will be able to see our art pieces that the agency has purchased, that kind of depicts what mental health and addiction and coping looks like, in visual aspects.
Mhm.
So we have a wonderful day lined out for everyone. I am hoping that everyone comes as excited as I am to be
Right.
able to receive the information, and as learn and take away as much as possible.
Mhm. What are you hoping they do? They're gonna come, they're gonna get inspired, or they're gonna feel empowered, and you want them to do what from
I
that?
want them to know that they can call Northeast Delta for any and all Narcan, fentanyl test strips, and any other resource needs.
Mhm.
That they can understand that we are a state agency, that they can refer for behavioral health, addictive disorders treatment, our developmental disability services, and just know that whatever service we can't provide, that we have other contractors and things in place that they will be able to learn from and work with. I want them to know that they are going to walk away with a wealth of knowledge, not just on what they can do to work with the individuals that they serve, but again, like I say, Dr. Carol's segment is about self-care, what it is that they need to do in order to replenish themselves to be able to continue doing the work it is that they are doing. And also to be excited to know that we have so much planned. I have a lot of ideas rolling and rolling and rolling around constantly. And so we want them to follow the Phoenix so that they are able to know all of our services, all of our activities and different things that we have. And so this particular Thursday is going to be a full day. And then next week you'll be back on because of our jiggle aerobics. So they'll walk away knowing all of the services it is that we provide and that we have available to them and anyone that is within our 12 parish catchment area.
All righty. So, you guys, that's all about Miss Kara and what she does for HSA in the community and the Opioid Summit that will be this Thursday at Bayou Point on ULM campus. What time is registration? Free registration, you guys. What time is
Free
that?
registration. Registration will start at 8:30. Our first session is going to begin at 9. We want to start on time because we want to get out on time.
Right.
So please be cognizant of that. So we'll start registration at 8:30. First session begins at 9. We have enough breaks provided throughout the day to where
Mhm.
you'll be able to break out and interact with one another, interact with our vendor area, and then still be done with everything by 4 o'clock.
Okay, and you will be feeding us, right? Because we're gonna be there all day.
Yes, we will
Okay,
be feeding you. We
thank
will
you.
have, and then
Thank
we will also have coffee and water all
you.
throughout the day. So everything you need will be there on site for that day.
Okay. And you can register at on our Eventbrite. Go to Northeast Delta Human Services Authority on Eventbrite, or you can also find us on all of our social media, and you can find the registration link there. Also, and something else that's very important before we leave: continued education.
Yes. So
Okay.
we will be offering 5 hours of continuing education. That is the only thing that you will have to pay for. So 5 hours for $5.
Mhm.
We will be able to take cash, check, or money order at the door. Our wonderful prevention and wellness team will be set up at the table. It will flow and everything will go seamlessly. So even if you have not registered for the CEU ticket, if you decide by the time you make it there Thursday morning that you need it, we will be able to accommodate you with that. So again, it is 5 hours for $5. That is the only thing that you will have to pay for that entire day. Everything else is no cost.
All right. If you all have any questions, definitely email us, message us on our social media, and you can always find Kara. What is your email, Kara?
It is kara.etienne@la.gov.
All right. You guys enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you on Thursday, 8:30 for the opioid summit.
Meet us there.